Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel SK Tech. In today's video, we are going to see example of the lambda expression. We have already seen the theory concept in our previous video, okay? And in this video, we are going to perform different types of the example with the help of the lambda expression. So let's begin. So these are some couple of the examples that I have listed down. I am going to demonstrate all these example like lambda expression with no parameter, single parameter, multi-parameter, multiple statement, creating thread, comparator, and also we are going to perform this operation like iterate array list with the for each plus lambda expression, and similar to that we are going to perform on both like list interface, set interface and map interface. Okay, so before going to the demonstration, let's try to remember the syntax of the lambda expression. So what was the lambda expression? So this is how the syntax was look like. There should be some braces, then it will be having arrow and then curly braces, right? This is how the expression would be look like, where what we call this one. So this is called parameter. Okay, and this is called arrow. This arrow basically used to separate parameters to lambda body. So what is the lambda body? So basically this is called lambda body. So this is how the syntax of the lambda expression looks like, right? So here it can be like multiple statement or single statement. Similar to that, these parameters also can contain like single parameter, multiple parameter and no parameter. So in case of the single parameter, we no need to provide these braces also. So in those kinds of scenario, this is optional. Similar to that, if we have a single statement inside the body, then this curly braces is a optional type. We will see with the help of the example. Okay. Now let's go to the IntelliJ IDE and try to perform the operation. So for simplicity, I have already created the one class called Lambda Example Demo and main method, and here we are going to perform the example of the lambda expression. So before going to the lambda expression, let's try to understand if there is a interface which contain exactly one abstract method, how the implementation we were doing earlier before the Java 8. Okay, so it can be our own interface, or you can say it can be a Java provided interface like comparator, like runnable. Those are interfaces provided by the Java which contain exactly one method. That's what we have seen as part of the theory concept. So for this example, let's try to create one interface like custom interface. So let's say we have an interface called, let's say we can give any name, let's say drawable. Okay, and this interface, let's say we have exactly one abstract method. Why we are saying exactly one abstract method? Because lambda expression is the implementation of the functional interface, and functional interface means an interface which contain exactly one abstract method and can contain another static and default method. We will see what is static and default method as part of the functional interface discussion. So let's say this is the interface, and before Java 8 or before lambda expression, how we are providing the implementation. So basically there are two ways. First way is like create a class, then implements, right, and provide the implementation. And to use that, we have to create the object and call the method. What are the method is there? Let's say in this case obj dot draw. So this is the one way. Another way is like using the anonymous class implementation. Okay, so now let's see how we can provide the implementation using the anonymous class, because this is very straightforward. As per the statement only, we can create the class, we can implement this interface and provide the implementation, and if you want to use it, we need to create the object inside here and then use it, something like this. How to provide the implementation of any interface which exactly have one abstract method using the anonymous class. So if you want to use the anonymous, how we can do that? We need to provide the interface name, then we need to provide the object, and here we need to provide the implementation, something like this, right? So here we need to provide new drawable, the interface name, and inside that we need to provide the implementation. So let's say we have provided implementation something like this, and here let's say we have some implementation simply like we are printing the statement like, let's say drawable, and or let's say we have any instance variable like int width, let's say we have a 10. That is also possible to use inside this anonymous. Let's say we want to use it, so we are concatenating it here like width, right? So this is how we provide the implementation using the anonymous class. And if you want to use this method, how we can do that? Using this object, right? We can call this method draw. So something like, let's say drawable dot draw. So if you run this program, it is going to call this draw method from the drawable interface and going to print the output. What are the implementation that we have provided it here? So here we are doing some simply C# statement. So same thing it is going to print here. So let's wait for that and see the output. Yeah, so you can see that it is printing drawable 10. So this is using the anonymous class. Now let's see how we can replace it with the lambda expression. So lambda expression implementation also similar to this one only, but lots of the boilerplate code will be removed. Let's see how we can do that. So if you want to provide the implementation using the lambda expression, what is the way of doing that? So we have seen this is the syntax of the lambda expression, right? So this is what we are going to use it and provide the implementation. So first we need to write the interface name, and then let's say variable name drawable 1, and here we need to write the logic of the lambda expression. So first we need to write this braces, then arrow, and then body of the lambda method, right? So let's say the same implementation we are going to provide here also. So let's add some more statement here like using lambda, right? And that's it. So this is a very simple statement, or this is very simple implementation of using the lambda. So if you can see here, we are not providing any method name, any new keyword, any override. We are simply using the lambda expression, and using this body we are able to provide the implementation. And if you want to use it, so it's a similar one. We need to use the object and then method name. So if you run this program, this is also going to print the same output. So if you can see here, this is also printing same using lambda drawable, and what are the implementation that we have written it here. So here we have to note down one thing, like if the abstract method takes no argument, or you can say no parameter, and return no value, like here it is like void type, then with the lambda expression can be written with the empty parentheses and body. And also if the body implementation is having one statement, then this braces is also optional. So if you can remove this also, and if you run this program, this is also going to print the same output, right? So if you see here, it is printing like using lambda drawable, and what are the value we have provided it here with. So this is in case of the interface which contain one method and which does not require any parenthesis, or you can say any argument. Now let's move ahead and see. Let's say we have an interface, okay, which contain exactly one abstract method and also contain the parameter. How we can provide the implementation? So let's try to create another interface. Let's say an interface sayable, okay, and this is having one method called say, and this method it required one argument, let's say string type, okay. This could be anything, but just for the demonstration purpose, let's say we have an interface which have one abstract method which also required one argument like this. So how we can provide the implementation using the lambda? So it's very simple. Similar to this, we can write it. So what we need to do? First we need to write the interface name. Why? Because the implementation of this method is going to be hold with this object only. Okay, for that purpose only we need to provide like interface name, let's say Sable, and then we need to create the object equal to, and here we need to provide the implementation of this method. So similar to the no argument, if there is a one argument, first we need to write the syntax of the lambda. So it should be braces, then arrow, and then body. So this is the standard syntax of the lambda expression. We have to familiarize with this syntax only, and later on, once you familiarize with this lambda expression, you will get to know like when this parenthesis is optional, when this curly braces is optional, when we need to provide the data type, when we no need to provide the data type. But we need to go one by one, or you can say step by step, so it will be easy for you to understand how the lambda expression can be written. Okay, so first it should be parenthesis. If we are providing the method implementation which required an argument, that argument we need to pass it here. So there are two ways. One way is like we can directly provide like the data type and then variable, and inside the body we can provide the implementation. So let's say that we have written the implementation something like we just want to print some message. Okay, how we can do that? So it's very simple. We need to write sysout statement, and inside that, let's say we have an argument, this argument only, let's say we want to print it. We need to use this variable only. So whenever you are going to call this lambda expression, it is going to pass this argument, and it is going to do what are the operations that we have written it here. So simply we are printing it, it is going to print this variable value. Okay, so this is exactly similar to the any method, something like, let's say if we have a method which required one argument, and if you want to write the implementation, how we can do it? So it will be something like, let's say this method only. So using the traditional one, how we can provide the implementation? So we usually write like this, right? Then starting curly braces, inside that if you want to use this variable, let's say we want to provide the implementation to print this message, right? So how we can do that? We simply write this statement only, right? And this variable only we are using it here. Similar to that, in case of the lambda expression also, this variable, whatever variable we have provided, same variable can be used inside the body of the lambda for any purpose. Let's say we are printing it, so simply we are using this variable. Let's say we want to perform some operation, or let's say we want to append something. What are the argument value you are providing it here? We want to append something with this message. So let's say how we can do that. So it's very simple. Let's say we have written like sk take 9521. So what are the message that you are going to provide it here? It is going to print along with that this message also. So this is using the traditional one, and this is using the lambda expression. So if you want to call this method, we need to create the object of the implemented class, then call it, right? But in case of the lambda expression, we need to call use this variable and call the method. So what are the method name? Method name is say. So you can see here it is asking, it is required one argument. So that argument is nothing but string type. So let's say provide like hello. Okay, and if you run this program, what it is going to do? It is going to call this method say, and what are the implementation that we have provided here? So hello plus sk take 9521. So you can see here it is printing like hello sk take 9521. So this is how we can provide the implementation of the single parameter. So here again one point you have to note down that we have already discussed. If this is a single parameter, then first of all this braces is not required. And one more thing is like the data type. Data type is also not required. This data type information in Java is going to detect it based on the data type provided it here. So this expression can be written like this also, and again this is a single statement. In case of the single statement, this curly braces is also optional. So even if you are providing it or not, both are going to work. So if you run this program, you are going to see the same output. So see here it is printing hello sk take 9521. Okay, so this is how we can provide the implementation of any interface which have exactly one abstract method with the one argument type. Now let's say we have an interface which have one abstract method which contain more than one argument. Let's say we have a two argument. So let's try to create one simple interface, something like interface let's say we want to create one interface like addition. Okay, and inside that, let's say we have a method called int add, and let's say it is requiring two arguments, int a and int b, and we want to provide the implementation of this interface. So how we can do that? Using the lambda expression. We know how to do that using the any traditional one, using the class or using the anonymous. So we can see here this syntax, in a one line only we are able to provide the implementation of any interface which have exactly one method, right? But without lambda we need to write this piece of code, or in case of this we need to write lots of code, right, to provide the implementation of one method only. So this you can see here how the lambda is very neat and clean. Using single line only we are able to provide the implementation. So at the first time it might be looking complex for you to understand this syntax, but once you familiarize with this syntax, it will be very easy for you to implement any of the method, or you can say any interface which have exactly one abstract method. But when we have an interface which have more than one abstract method, that is not called functional interface. Those implementation cannot be provided by the lambda expression, because lambda expression is nothing but the implementation of the functional interface which have exactly one abstract method. Okay, so now let's see how we can provide the implementation of this interface which have one method which is containing like two variables. So let's say we want to provide the implementation, and the implementation we are going to provide, like we are going to use this variable and going to perform the addition of this number. Okay, how we can do that? So similar to that, what is the way of writing the implementation of any interface, or you can say any functional interface? You need to write the interface name, then variable name, and here we need to write the lambda expression. So what is the syntax for that? Simple, braces, arrow, and then body. So at the first time you need to write all these syntaxes. At the later point of time, once you familiarize it, you can remove it, this parenthesis, based on the understanding. Like if it is having one argument, then you can remove it. If it is having multiple statement, then you cannot remove it. It is required that time. So this curly braces is similar to the if statement. Like in case of the if statement, inside the if it is having one statement, this curly braces is optional, right? If it is having more than one statement, then this curly braces is mandatory. Similar to that, lambda also behave like that. So let's say how we can do that. So what we need to do, since it is required two argument, right? So we can pass this argument here directly with the data type first time, because we need to familiarize with the syntax. Then later on we can remove this data type also. We know that data type can be detected based on the definition provided by this interface. Java is going to use that, and it's going to identify what are the data type is required by this method. Okay, so let's try first time let's try to add this data type just to familiarize it, and here we are going to write the logic. So let's say if any method having two argument, and if you want to perform the addition, how we can do that? Using the traditional one. Simply, let's say if this method is there right here, and this is having two argument, if you want to do the addition of these two number, what we can do it, and also we want to print it. So how we can do that? Simply we need to write a plus b right here. Similar to that, in lambda expression also you can do that. So let's say we want to add these two number, so a plus b. Okay, and we have noticed down here this method is having return type. So what we need to do here, we need to write the return statement, something like this. So this is how we can provide the implementation of any method which is having two argument and also having the return type. And if you want to use it, how we can use it? Using this variable only, again addition dot add, and here we need to provide those argument value, let's say 10 and 20. So what it is going to do, it is going to provide the, or you can say it is going to return the a plus v value. So let's say we want to store it, or also we can do it like, let's say we can print it. So let's write this without statement, or for the simplicity, let's try to use another variable c, and let's try to hold it, and after that we can print it. So let's write some statement like addition of a and b, and here we can append this variable, right? So this is the simple implementation of this method which is having two argument, or you can say more than one argument, and also having the return type. So if you run this program, it is going to print the addition of these two numbers. It is going to hold by the variable c, and this is what we are printing it, like addition of a and b equal to 3. Now let's try to simplify the syntax again. So since this method having two argument and also having some data type, so we know that Java is going to identify this data type based on the definition provided by this interface. So we can remove this data type also. This is also going to work. You can see that it is not throwing any exception, and since this is having a more than one argument, then we cannot remove this braces. This braces is required if it is having more than one. So we need to use this braces. That is the second point. Next point we have to remember here is like, since this lambda body is containing exactly one statement, so in case of one statement, even if it is having a return type, this return type can be optional. If you can see here, it is showing gray color, right? So we can remove this return type also. But since this is having one expression, so for Java, for simplicity, we need to provide inside the braces something like this. Okay, and again this is one statement only. So this lambda expression. So let's try to reverse it again, and then we'll see what we have done, what was earlier, right? So let's write this statement again quickly. Then we will see the what is the difference between the previous one and the new one. So earlier it was having int here, and here it was having return. This is how the statement was look like earlier. This statement can be replaced by this a plus b. So you can see here, if it is having a one statement and when it is returning anything, we no need to provide the return keyword. Return keyword can be going to be detected by here, by the Java. And since it is having a one statement only, so again this curly braces is also an option, so we can remove it. And even this expression also can be removed. So this statement can be replaced with this expression. If you can see here how simpler it is, right? Another important point here we have to note down is that in case of the multiple parameter, this return type we have to remove for all the variable. If you are removing for one variable and keeping for another variable, something like this, Java is going to throw some exception, because in this case it will not able to identify like which data type is provided and which data type is not provided based on this definition. So here we have to note down is like, if we want to remove this data type, we have to remove for all the variable or none of the variable. So either of the case it is going to work. So if you run this program also going to print the same output. If you can see here, addition of a and b, it is printing 30. So you can see how simpler it is, right? In this simple statement, we are able to provide the implementation of any method, or you can say implementation of any interface which have exactly one method and having multiple argument using the lambda expression. Okay, now moving ahead, now we are going to see how the multiple statement will work inside this curly braces, or you can say lambda body. So let's try to create another interface for demonstrating the multiple statement. So let's say we have an interface like I average, it can be anything, and inside that let's say we have a method called avg, which is going to calculate the average of the number which we have provided. So here let's say we have an argument like array type. So this is also possible, array, and let's say this method is going to return something. So let's say the return type of this method is like double. Okay, let's say we have this interface which is having one method called average, which is expecting some array input like integer of the array. So let's say how we can provide the implementation of this method using the lambda expression. So to provide the implementation, first we need to use this variable, right? So this is the syntax that you have to remember. We have to provide the interface name, then let's say variable, and here we need to provide the expression of the lambda. So that is nothing but this braces, then arrow, and then curly braces, that is called lambda body, right? And then we can start implementing the lambda right? How we can do that? So first, since this is expecting some argument, so we need to provide the argument. So let's say we are writing some argument name like array. It can be anything, but just that since it is expecting one argument, so we can provide this variable name, and data type can be detected by the Java compiler at the runtime based on the definition provided by here, right? And inside the body, let's say we have a multiple statement. So in case of the multiple statement, this curly braces is going to be mandatory. So we can write something like this: starting curly braces, ending curly braces, and inside that we can provide the implementation. So let's say we are going to provide the implementation something like, we are going to calculate the what are the number provided by the here, going to calculate the average of the number. So let's say the implementation of this method something like double. Let's say we have a variable called sum, and here we are going to print first like array size. This implementation can be anything. Just for the demonstration purpose, I'm just trying to print it something. So let's say we have another variable, let's say int array size equal to, we want to calculate the size of the array, so array dot length, this is the method, and let's say we are printing this length of the array here. And after that, if you want to calculate the average number for given list of the integer number, how you can do that? Using the simple for loop, right? Int I equal to 0, I is less than, let's say array, then I plus plus, and here we can write like sum equal to sum plus array of I. So this is going to return the summation of each number, right? And after that, what we can do, we can print it here also. So let's say we are printing like sys out, let's give some statement like sum, and we are going to print the sum. And let's say we have written like return statement here, because this method is returning something, right, double type. So how we can do that? Let's say sum divide by array size. So basically this is the implementation of going to calculate the average number for each number provided here, right? And if you want to use it, how you can use it? It's very simple, using the variable name, then we need to call the method. So what is the method name? avj, and here it is expecting array integer, right? So let's try to create some array integer here first. Arr, let's provide some variable here like 1 comma 2 comma like this, and this argument we can pass it here. So what it is going to do, basically it is going to call the average method from this interface, right? And what are the implementation for this method? It is nothing but it is trying to print the size of the array first, and then using the for loop we are trying to calculate the summation of each number, and then that is also we are printing it here, and after that we are calculating the average number. So basically summation of the array divided by the number of the element, which is going to return the average number for each of the number provided here. Okay, so which is going to return as a integer type, so which is going to return as a double type as per the data type provided here. Now let's try to print it directly. How we can do that? Simple, let's write some statement like avj of given number, and here one square bracket. So you can see that in case of the multiple statement, this curly braces is mandatory. So if you remove this one, it is not going to identify is written inside the implementation of this method. So on those kinds of scenario, this curly braces is going to be mandatory. So basically in case of the multiple statement, this curly braces is mandatory. In case of the single statement, this curly braces is optional. Now let's try to run this program and see the output. Yes, you can see that average of given number, it is printing like 3.0. So you can see first it is printing the size of the array, which is nothing but the length of the array, that is nothing but 1 2 3 4 5, and then it is printing summation of each number. So if you divide the 15 by 5, it is going to return the 3, and since it is having a double type, it is printing 3.0. So this is how we can provide the implementation of any method inside the interface, or you can say functional interface, which have exactly one method, and also it is going to give the implementation of those method having multiple statement. So in those kinds of scenario, this curly braces is mandatory. Okay. So these are the interfaces that we have created, right? This is like user defined interfaces, and we are able to provide the implementation. Now let's see, is there are a couple of the interfaces provided by the Java even before the Java 8, like runnable interface, comparator interface, and those interfaces also contain exactly one method. Now let's see how we can provide the implementation for those interfaces using the Lambda expression. Let's say we are going to provide the implementation of runnable interface, and then later on we are going to see how we can provide the implementation of comparator, that is also an interface, right? So we know that runnable interface have exactly one method, you can say exactly one upstate method, that is run. Now let's see how we are providing the implementation using the anonymous class first, then we will see how we can replace it with the Lambda expression. So if you want to provide the runnable interface implementation, how we can do that? We need to write the runnable interface, then variable name equal to, here we need to provide the new runnable interface, and inside that we need to provide the implementation of this run method, right? So let's say we have provided the implementation something like, we are simply printing a statement like could be anything like runnable example, okay, and let's terminate it. And if you want to use this method to create any thread, how you can do that? So first we need to create the thread class, then variable name, let's say thread equal to new thread, and here we need to provide the object of runnable, which is having the implementation of run method, right? So this is how we can create the thread using the traditional one, right? We need to provide the implementation of runnable interface, then we need to create the object of the thread class. Using that we need to pass this runnable object here, and using the start method we can start the thread, right? Let's see how we can do that. So start method. So if you run this program, it is going to create one thread, and also it is going to start that thread. So that thread is going to perform the operation which is written here. So basically it is having like one simple statement. So let's run this program and see the output. So you can see that it is printing like runnable example. Now let's see how we can replace this example, or you can say implementation of existing interface which have exactly one method using the Lambda. It's very simple. Since this method having no argument, so we need to provide the implementation something like this. So we need to write the runnable interface, then object, let's say 1, and here we need to write the Lambda expression. So what is the expression of the Lambda? Something like this. And since it is having no argument, so we need to provide this braces, then curly brace, then arrow, and here we need to write this statement. Let's write this same statement with some modification, like runnable with Lambda example. So this is how we can provide the implementation. So you can remove this curly braces also, since it is having one statement only. So you can see that this piece of code can be replaced with this single line. How simple it is, right? It is very neat and clean, and no need to write all this boilerplate code. So these are called boilerplate code, which is not required now because Lambda expression does not need it. It is going to detect all this method name, return type, argument if any, based on the definition provided by the interface. Okay, so this is how we can do that. And now the same statement we need to write to create any thread. So let's say we have this one, runnable 1, and using the 1 we are going to print it. So let's run this program and see the output. So you can see here this expression, or you can say this implementation also behaving the same. It is also printing the same expression, right? So this is how we can implement the runnable interface using the Lambda expression. Similar to that, there is another interface called comparator, and that comparator is also having one method called compare, right? Now let's see how we can provide the implementation of the comparator interface. So we know that what is the use of the comparator interface. So comparator interface is used to sort the list of the element. So first let's try to create the list of the element, then we can use that comparator interface, and we will use this sorting. let's try to create another class. Let's say we have a class called person, and let's say this person contains something like, let's say it contains like name and age. So private int age, private string name, and here let's try to create a constructor. So let's try to use the generate method only. So generate, using the generate we can create the constructor easily. We need to select all. Let's say we have a person class like this, which is having two fields, age and name. So let's try to create the list of the person class object here. So how we can do that? We need to create the list object. Here we need to provide the type of the object, let's say person, and list equal to new array list. So this is how we can create the object of the list, right? And here let's import it. Okay, and now let's try to create the multiple object here. So we can use the any of the method like list.add, or there is a method called arrays.asList. So with this also we will be able to provide. So here we need to provide the list of the person object. So how we can do that? You can say no need to create this object. We have also seen the one utility, right? List.off. So using this method we will be able to provide the list of the person object. So let's try to provide the list of the person object like new person, and here we need to provide like, let's say 29, name let's say learn, comma, let's say 30 or 20, sk tech, or you can say learn with sk tech 9521. This is nothing but our channel name. So let's say we have a list of this person class object, and how we can sort it using the comparator interface. Let's say how we can provide the implementation of this comparator interface using the anonymous class. So it's very simple. We need to write the comparator as, basically we need to write the interface name. So what is the interface name? Comparator, then some variable, let's say comparator. So since comparator is going to work on the user defined data type, so it is having a person, so we need to provide it here as a person. Okay, and then here we need to provide the comparator interface implementation, right? So what is, so it's a very simple statement here, like we need to write it here like o1 dot. So you can see here there is no method called get age. Let's go to the person class, provide some implementation here like getter method, setter method. So generate getter and setter. So now there is a method called get age minus o2 dot get age. So this is how we can provide the implementation of the comparator interface of any user-defined data type like person, and here we are sorting the person object based on the age. Now we need to use the collection in utility, collections dot sort method, and here we need to provide the list of the person. So what is the object? That is nothing but the list, and we need to provide the comparator object. So what it is going to do? It is going to sort the list of the person based on the age. What are the implementation that we have written it here? That is nothing but we have written like sort the person object based on the age. So this comparator object we need to pass it here, and here we need to provide the list of the person object. Let's try to print the person object or person list. Let's run this program and see the output. Okay, so it is throwing some exception. What is the exception here is like? It is throwing like immutable collection, and basically this, what are the collection that we have created it here, the list type list.off, it is going to create the immutable collection. It means that we cannot modify the object that we have provided it here. So let's try to create in the traditional one only. So it is something like new array list, and using the add method we can add it, right? So list dot add, let's add this one object here, and similar to that. Now let's run this program and see the output. So what it is printing? It is printing some object here, right? Because we have not overridden any toString method, so there is a two way to print the actual value. Either we can iterate it and print it one by one, or you can go directly to the person class and implement the toString method here. So which is similar only, which we have already seen in our previous video, right, as part of the Java 7. So use the generate method, toString method, and we have written something like this, let's say. So it is going to print in this format. Now let's run this program and see the output again. Yeah, so you can see that collection has been sorted based on the age, but one interesting thing here is like we have provided like 29 everywhere, so we are not able to identify it is actually sorting or not. Let's give the some different name like 18, or you can say 10, 5. Now let's run this program and see the output. Yeah, so you can see that it is printing 5 first, then 10, and then 29. So basically it has been sorted based on the age, and this is how we can provide the implementation of the comparator interface using the traditional one. Now let's see how we can replace it with the help of the lambda expression. Okay, so what we are going to do, we are going to use the with lambda expression, and also we are going to sort the list by age. Okay, so how we can provide the implementation using the comparator interface using the lambda expression? So it's very simple. First we need to write the interface name, let's say this one only, equal to, and here we need to provide the lambda expression. So what is the lambda expression? This braces, arrow, and then curly braces. So let's give this different name here like comparator 1 and this, and here we need to provide the implementation. So we know that this comparator interface having one method called compare. So let's go to inside and see the method name compare, which is expecting 2 argument, and it is also going to return something, right? So based on this only we are going to provide the implementation. So since it is expecting 2 argument, so what are those argument? If you can see here, it is expecting like t type. T in the sense what are the type that we have stored it inside the comparator, same type only it is going to expect it here also. So since we have stored like person type, so we need to provide the 2 object of person type. So we need to provide like p1, p2. So it can be like person 1 and person 2 also, but that is like going to identify based on the definition provided over here like person. So either we can provide the data type here or we can remove it. It is going to be identified by the Java based on the data type provided by here. So since it is a person type, we can provide like person 1, person 2, and here we need to write the implementation of compare method. So what is the method that we have seen here? What is the implementation? So this is the implementation, right? So same statement can be written here also. Let's say return this. So what are the object name here now? P1 and P2. So this is also going to work similar to this one only. Now let's prove it. Let's try to call this method again. And let's try to sort it. So let's say we are sorting like list and this comparator. Okay, now for simplicity let's try to comment it out this, so that it will be more clear like is it really sorting or not. Okay, now let's run this program and see the output. Okay, so actually we are not calling this method, so let's try to print it basically again here, similar to this one only. Now let's run this program and see the output. Yeah, so you can see that it is printing 5 first, then age 10, then 29. So in this way also it is performing the same operation, and you can see that this implementation has been replaced with this simple this 2 piece of code. And here again you can see here this person object is optional because it is going to be detected at runtime by the compiler. What are the type here? We have provided it here. And again similar to that, since it is having only one statement, then this return type is also optional, right? And even this curly braces is also optional. So even if you remove this one, and you write something like this in a single line, this is also going to work similar to the previous one. So, you see that within this one line we are able to provide the implementation of comparator interface of user defined data type to sort the list of the person object, right? How it is very neat and clean, right? It's very simple. In single line only we are able to provide the implementation. So that's all for today's video. In next upcoming video we are going to see some couple of more example that we have listed down here, like iterate list with the for each method plus lambda expression, similar to that hash set and hash map. Okay, so stay tuned, we'll meet you soon. Thank you.